Hey everybody, welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Hour. My name is Jason. I'm with the Rogue Banshee. Usually I am joined by Lupo from Lupo Outdoors. Unfortunately, he had a meeting that was running a little late, and I'm going to just tease him and just say he just forgot. But we know he actually didn't forget. He just he is a little busy and he's in the car. So, anyways, today we're going to talk about optics. For me, optics have been such an odd thing, right? Because I've always been an iron sights type of person. It's always been, iron sights will never fail. But as I'm getting older, and I don't know, maybe I'm just getting lazier as I'm getting older, uh, optics have become a thing, right? So now we're starting to deal with optics on rifles and pistols, and it's an exciting world of optics because it seems like everybody is coming out with something for a pistol or a rifle. So really, I wanted to see everybody join in the chat and just talk about this. Let's have an open discussion about whether you think optics are a good thing, bad thing. In scopes, you have first focal plane, second focal plane. We'll talk about red dots. Do you like the dot? Do you like the crosshairs? There's all kinds of stuff, and this thing could go forever. And there's debates about everything. Now, since I'm a pistol shooter, I'm going to start off with pistols because, well, that's just my thing. And with this, I really love red dots on pistols. I never thought that I would, but it's really becoming one of my favorite things, even on my EDC. I carry a SIG P365 as my everyday carry. Actually, I carry the 365 XL as my everyday carry, but I've been playing with a new slide on my 365, the regular standard 365, and it gave me an optics cut. And this is running the Crimson Trace Rad Micro Pro. So the one thing I like about certain red dots on my everyday carry is I want an option for backup sites. So that's why I like the Crimson Trace Rad Micro Pro. There's other ones out there that have this. They have a little notch on the back. So that way, if for some reason the battery on my red dot goes down, or for some reason my red dot goes off zero, I can still use my backup iron sights. And I really love that. And hey, Screaming Skull Saloon, man, it's been a while since I've seen you, brother. Thanks for jumping in today. Um, so this is one thing I looked at is I really was hesitant about red dots on this. Um, Even on my P320X5, that's my competition gun. I'm starting to run carry optics division because I put a red dot on that thing. And recently I had someone out to the range and they're like really cool. Like, hey, this is gonna be cool. I get to shoot a red dot. I've never shot a red dot before, and they learned about what is called chasing the red dot, and it happened to me. And what's funny is that it's happened to a lot of people. I've seen some professional shooters even talk about going from irons to carry optics and learning about this chasing the red dot. And what it is that when you pull the gun up, you have a natural point of aim, but now you have that red dot that's just a little bit taller. It's standing a little bit more proud, and now you're kind of holding the gun different to see that red dot, and you just don't know where that red dot is. So what's happening is you're moving that gun around to find that red dot and get on target, and um, that's that's something that we need to think about. Just because we have a red dot on a pistol doesn't mean we're going to be a better shooter. You need to basically retrain with that pistol. You have a natural aim that you pull the gun out and you're pointing it, and that's where the red dot is. Um, that's that's not that might not be where you're looking. So we really need to start working with our holster and our gear again to relearn the pistol. And what's really kind of weird is I find myself sometimes even going back to the old way of how I used to shoot these guns, where I I've shot so many thousands of rounds without this red dot. And as I draw and I'm looking, I'm like, where's the red dot? And I start chasing the red dot. So definitely don't go into a red dot thinking, hey, look, this is going to make me an instant shooter overnight. It's not. You need to train with it. You need to start thinking about what's going on, and that this stuff is going to, you know, change your life. And and it's kind of it, but you got to work for it. So Screaming Eagles red dots are very nice, as you do not have to worry about the red dot sight. Let me bring this thing up here. Um, the sight radius, and they help you shoot more accurately at longer ranges with compact and sub. Absolutely, they do, and that's what I love about a red dot, because it just kinda, you have that dot, and it's just going to, draw your eye right in. So that way, I'm not looking at trying to get, the front sight even with the rear sight, and then trying to make sure it's, level left and right. You're absolutely right. That does kinda just get you there. So that way, now you're a little more accurate, because we're talking about, pistols are not as accurate as long guns. We have shorter barrels and that type of stuff. But yes, they will help you out with the longer range. Um, Now, when you get into some of these red dot sites, you start hearing like it's a 3.0 MOA dot and 6.0 MOA dot, and that can really affect that long range, because if you have a bigger dot, it might be covering up that target at longer range. Personally, I like a 3 MOA dot, because it's kind of that trade-off between long distance and short. I mean, a big dot is really good for short distance, and a smaller dot is really good for your long distance. That 3 MA for me is right around the middle, and it gives me that good balance. Um, and then Screaming Eagle Saloon is good. I still have not switched over from red dot on my handguns yet, but someday. Trust me, it takes a little bit of time, especially on handguns. I don't seem to have a problem with red dots on my long guns. They seem to be a little more natural for me. Yeah, the way I hold my cheek up against the stock's a little different, but yeah, on pistols, I find that there's a bigger learning curve with red dots on those pistols than they are on long guns. I have a new one, and sorry, I can't do this on air, because it's against YouTube policies, and I'm trying to like disassemble these guns that I have on my bench, so I can show you these things. Um, so one of the red dots that I have, of course, this is a threaded barrel, and I got to grab the threading off of this thing. Um, One of the things I started playing with, I have another red dot. Well, it's actually a green dot from Gideon Optics. Um, I had this one out, and this one was, I think this is a red dot, or green dot. That's really designed for long guns more than pistols, even though you can mount it on a pistol. It's running an RMR footprint, but it has um, a pick rail adapter. And a lot of these red dots have pick rail adapters that you can pull them off and then start putting them on pistols. This thing actually has like a green dot with a circle and then the crosshairs. It's funny, I prefer a single dot, and I thought that this was gonna drive me nuts when I went to the range, and I know this is starting to sound more like a review video. I'm trying to see if I can get this thing aligned. Talk about chasing a red dot, and I just can't quite get it. Um, I thought that that was going to drive me nuts. At first it did, but then actually I started liking it, and I'm surprised. But yeah, that's just really, if you're going to play with these things, especially on pistols, see if you can borrow somebody else's, or if you're at the store, see if you can play with them at the store to see how you're going to like them. Hey, Roy K, thanks for joining us today. He's got red dots and green dots on every gun he can, and then at most these red dots cost less than $150 a piece, and no failures yet. And that is true. These red dots have become so cheap. They used to be really expensive. I have red dots. I mean, trust me, I have an Amazon special that I wouldn't trust my life on it, but it's a lot of fun. That's what I put that on the fun guns, mostly the 22s. But yeah, you can get a really good red dot anywhere between 100 and $150, especially if you catch them on sale, like like Black Friday, around the holiday stuff. You can get a really good red dot for a great deal. Um, but just realize that you do need to work with these things, and I can't recommend enough that you go out and try somebody else's before you decide on going for a red dot or a green dot onto your pistol, just so you know what it's like, because it is different. I'm trying to remember her name. It's Jessica Hook from, she shoots for Beretta now. When she went to uh, over to Carry Optics division on her Beretta 92X, she did a post with a video, and you can see her chasing the red dot. It really is a serious thing out there that you got to think of. And remember, she's a professional shooter, and she was having a hard time going from irons over to red dot. So I'm not trying to talk you away from. I'm just telling you this is not going to make you an instant, better shooter. It will when you start learning, the new muscle memory of the red dot. Now, of course, I've been talking about them on pistols. I've also, have them on long guns. I'm looking around, and unfortunately, I don't have a long gun that's disassembled that I could pull apart really quick. Um, I love red dots on ARs. I mean, it's a lot of fun shooting with a red dot on ARs because let's just face it, ARs are kind of fun to shoot. I love, I love being able to just pull that gun up and there it is. Screaming Eagles got what? The only red dot he currently owns a Trijicon RMO on a lightweight AR and a Holosun 403C GR on his PS90. I like that Holosun 403C. I do. I've never. I don't know anybody that has an MRO. I've heard good things about it. I like Trijicon as a company. I wouldn't have a problem with that with anything Trijicon, but yeah, I've been kind of drooling over a 403C. I'm guessing the GR is the green. But yeah, all of a sudden has got some really, I mean, especially now that they've settled that lawsuit over, over patent infringements. But all of a sudden kind of caught everybody by surprise with that, the backup uh, solar panels onto the hood of their green, the red dots. Something I really like. I don't know how for like me. I don't know how good it would be great for an everyday carry, mostly because it's not going to get sun. But I think it's a great idea to put that on there so that way, if you're in full light, at least you can get some charge off of it. Um, but yeah, absolutely on ARs. I love putting red dots on ARs. It's like the AR just screams red dot now, right? I mean, especially when you're starting to have I mean, think about it. When's the last time you bought an AR that has a carry handle, right? I mean, like the old A2 carry handles that's built into the receiver. We just don't see those that often. Everything else is the M4 flat tops. And to me, that just screams red dot, right? I mean, I've got this pick rail. I just want to put a red dot on it and just go to town. It's a lot of fun. And this person that we were also shooting, an AR with a red dot on it, and he was chasing. Now, it was a very, it wasn't his first time shooting, but he was, he had been shooting a lot, and he started chasing the red dot a little bit. But when he got on the long gun, he eventually got that thing down where it's because really it's just where you put your cheek on the stock and then the red dot's just right there. He had a lot of fun with that. We had my AR knocked down to 22s at the time, and man, I'll tell you what, an AR on 22 with a red dot, it's just like so much fun, right? Hey, Vanessa Kitty, thanks for joining today. So for everybody joining that's expecting to see Lupo with me, we are teasing Lupo for just saying that he forgot. He did not forget. It was that he had an appointment that ran long, and he just couldn't join. But hey, if you do see Lupo, just tease him. Say, hey, you forgot about your own podcast, didn't you? So ARs, I like it on ARs. I've even put them on. I have a Benelli M2 that I use for 3 gun. I've put a red dot on a Benelli M2. I put it on my 308 AR. Super fun, right? I mean, I don't know anybody would argue super fun, yeah, that they're not super fun. The one thing I like about putting red dots onto a rifle is, now you can put multipliers on, right? You can get that little thing that flops back over. Now you got a multiplier, which now lets you take, basically from tactical ranges to, a little farther out engagement. and I love the multipliers. But really, since we got a bunch of people in here, chime in. Red dot or irons, because I still like irons on some of the stuff. Um, I mean, like, I have, like, my old Smith& and Wesson Model 41. It's a 22, basically a 22 race gun from the, 70s. They still produce them now, but, um, that's just that gun is just irons. I mean, that it was never designed. There's no pick rails. There's nothing. They have to drill and tap that thing, put something on. But there are some guns that are just you just don't put red dots on, right? You just don't put optics on those things. Now, since we're talking about some long guns, what about putting scopes on there? Because now, again, I was always an iron shooter. I've never been hunting with a rifle with a scope on it. Now, of course, I haven't been able to. I haven't shot. I haven't. Well, I haven't hunted since I was 14. Um, but yeah, it's and there's a little chat in here. Roy says, um, "Green dot's better for him to see." I agree. Green dot is a lot easier for me to see as well. I'm kind of glad that we can now get some choices on red or green. Um, red works for me on some guns, but honestly, if I have one that I can switch between red and green, it's funny. I choose the green. It's just it's really odd how that choice just kind of just took to me. That green is an easier thing to see. Um, and Vanessa Kitty, irons, but green dot maybe. Red dots are nothing but but starburst. See, and that's kind of a thing because there are people that they have either like cataract surgery or LASIK, and lights do affect your vision with things like that, right? I mean, especially like you hear a lot of people have that LASIK surgery, um, that they get the starburst at night when they're driving. So that going to a red dot might not be a good thing for you long term. I mean, I think about my eyes. I have in my left eye, I have a small cataract that we've been watching for a few years. Eventually, I'm going to have cataract surgery. Is that going to affect my ability to use red dots? Probably not because I'm right eye dominant and I don't have it in my right eye. But it could, since I shoot with two eyes open, well, most of the time, not all the time anymore. As I'm getting older, starting to get lazy again and closing an eye. But yes, red dots could be a problem for some people with some eye conditions. They just might see irons a lot better because you don't have that light reflecting in. Um, and then Vanessa Kitty again, optics are important. I've been wearing and using optics since 1967. Um, yeah, optics are important. I do agree. And Vanessa, I'm thinking you're talking a little bit more about your military background with that. Um, and I know you've hunted just about everywhere. Um, and then Screaming Eagle is up there. I go with red because I live in a very green environment, and I do see green better than red. That's something I never thought about. That's a really good point that you brought up there. Is the whole thing about if you live in a green environment, like here in Montana, we're green for a few months in the spring and a few months in the fall, but other than that usually it's pretty brown here because I actually, I live here in Helena, and this is actually a high altitude desert up here. So things dry out really fast here. So I can see where, like, out in like the Midwest, the East, and even on the West Coast there, where you have a lot of greenery, a green could cause a problem. It's something I totally didn't think of before. And let's see here, Vanessa Kitty. No eye surgery yet. Left eye is a wrinkle in the retina. Yeah, that would be a little bit of a problem for you. See everything in a mirror. Yeah. So yeah, and that's something honestly I didn't even think about eye problems, even though it makes perfect sense. Um, and then optics in the military as hunting as well. But you can't. Let's see here. You can never shoot something that you cannot identify. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm like reading up on the TV, and I got um, have a progressive, so I have to like nod my head to get everything into focus there, because that's just the way it is. Um, but yes, so anyways, going back to scopes, going to long guns and with scopes, we start talking about first focal plane, second plane. It's almost like, oh my god, I just want to shoot, right? I mean, what reticle do I want? Do I want an MOA? Do I want, mill? Do I want it in this, that, the other? But what's the difference between first focal plane, second focal plane, and all that stuff? Um, so this is really why I held off on optics, because I just did not want to figure out all this crap with a scope, right? I mean, I start hearing about first focal plane versus second focal plane. I hear people talking about this stuff, and I just went, man, I just want to go and yeah, I just want to go to the range and enjoy my gun. I don't want to have to start thinking about this stuff over and over and over again. And so let's talk a little bit about first focal plane versus second focal plane, and there's going to be arguments all over the place for which one is better than the other. Um, the greatest thing about first focal plane is the reticle enlarges and shrinks depending on your magnification, whereas second focal plane is the direct opposite. That reticle always stays the same. Now, you would think that, hey, look, this would be a great thing that it would stay the same. But it actually can work against you, because if it stays the same, some of it, especially on like bullet drop, the the radiance there, they could be a little bit off. Well, not the radiance, the God, I just can't think. This is why I have Lupo on all the time, because he can when I get a little tongue tongue on, he can figure it out. Um, but anyways, I personally like I personally like my reticles getting larger and smaller. So that would be a first focal plane for me, right? Because no matter what my zoom level is, it's going to stay the same, right? That it's always gonna match up. Um, and Vanessa K. She goes, I got into semi long range shooting in the last year and a half. I went with a Night Force NX8, first focal plane, Tremor 3, reticle MRAD for her Seiko S20 and 6.8 Creedmoor. Love it. I'm sorry, that's yeah, Screaming Eagle. Sorry. Um, uh, yeah, no, that's a really good good scope there. And he followed up, yeah, first focal plane is great for determining range of known target size. It's absolutely right. And that's one thing I started learning with first focal plane. I started learning like what's the size of a license plate? What's the size of a uh, propane tank? And that way I can start saying, okay, that's about the size of a license plate. That's about 18 inches. So therefore, I can pull up on my estimation of, in my reticle, and figure that out. And I can do some quick calculations and figure out how far away I am from that. And that is an absolutely perfect example for first focal plane. Because again, we talk about second focal plane, since that, you know, those reticles are not growing with our magnification, then we run into a problem where those are only good at certain ranges, right? So that's why I like first focal plane. And trust me, I'm a lazy shooter. So anything that makes it easy for me is what I'm going to go after. So that's why I decided on first focal plane. Um, let's see here. Vanessa Katie was like, do I arrange objects in my head while working around town, or am I the only one? Well, first of all, since I work at home anymore, I don't range things, but I used to, right? Like I said, I mentioned earlier, I know what the size of a propane tank is, I know what the size of a license plate is, but how did I come up with those things? Because you see them all the time when you're out. And yeah, I started learning to range off of that. I remember when I started learning ranging, I was actually laying in her bed in a bedroom, and no one can see because of the blinds, and I'm like looking through my rifle out into the neighborhood, just picking up on license plates, and I started ranging every that's how I learned ranging. Because, well, first of all, it was nice to be in a nice air conditioned house on a nice soft bed, and just sitting there, just doing my math, and that's how I learned how to do it. Let's see here. And let's see here. What's Screaming Eagles asking Vanessa Kitty? They're talking about his rifle up there. Um, and then, especially when you have a rangefinder, and then check how see. Yeah, it's funny. I don't have a rangefinder. It's a good. That's a good thing. Screaming Eagle about. It would be nice to know if you're accurate. So that's something I would love to have as a rangefinder. Um, And then, Vanessa Kitty was talking about it also helps you with your guessing. And really, that's kind of funny because sometimes you need to make a snap decision on range, right? Especially if you're out hunting. Hunting is something a little bit different, right? When we go to we go to a range, we we sight our rifles in, we make sure their optics are on, but really, are we ever going to have, like, if you're at deer hunting, are you really going to have a deer just come walking straight up, give you a perfect broadside view, and just stand there? No, you have to think of some things through, like, because if they're on an angle, it's going to screw up your range estimation if you like start looking at like how big the shoulder blade is and stuff like that. So yeah, you do have to do a little. It's a little bit of science mixed with a little bit of guess, right? Um, so and then Tactical Flood joined us here. Hey, Tactical Flood, man, it's been a while. Thanks for joining us today. Um, it's and anyways, so going back to these things, and we start talking about the difference between MOA and and mill. It's really what you decide is just dependent on what your comfort level is. What do you feel comfortable in doing, math? Personally, I'm sitting here looking at a brand new scope I got in. It's a Crimson Trace Hardline, and originally I was going to get that thing um, um, in mill, but I decided against it. I decided to go back to MOA just because I like the idea of, at 100 yards, it's 1 inch. It's 1 inch. For me, the math is just a little more simple. As long as I can range correctly, I can do the math a little bit easier at that point. And it's funny, that's a second focal plane that I got in. So I'll be playing with a second focal plane and getting used to second focal plane, so it's something like I just said. Normally, I would do a first focal plane, but I wanted to start playing. So anyways, out in the chat there, we've got 9 people in the chat. Tell me, what are your thoughts about scopes, man? First focal plane, second focal plane. I know this is a pretty big debate on which one we choose, and also what reticle. Um, there is like Lupo has been doing shorts, and he has dug up reticles I've never even heard of. For me, it's like, okay, there's like 10 or 15. I mean, he's like discovered like 50 different reticles out there, and I'm just like, oh my god, how do you keep track of all that stuff? Um, and it's funny, Vanessa Kitty is like, I'm enjoying hearing people's thoughts. Yeah, I am too, man. It's so great hearing people talk in that chat about what they have, because it's optics is such a personal thing. Like I said before, it was a personal thing for me to stay with irons for so long until, like I said before, I'm a lazy shooter, and then now optics are becoming, a lot easier for me. Um, so it's great hearing people, and that's awesome to also do when you're thinking about something new. Like I said before with the red dots, you know, if you have a chance to go borrow somebody's gun that has a red dot or they're going to shoot, they're shooting, you can shoot it. That way you get to play with it and find out what you like. Same thing with scopes, man. If you can get out to the range and people are talking about, hey, I've got this scope, hey, ask them questions. That's one thing about gun people, man. We love to talk about our gear. Um, why did you pick this thing? Well, I picked it because of this. And they might have the exact same reasons why you decided to choose it rather than, um, somebody else. I mean, I have long range shooters that I know. And man, I'll tell you what, when those guys get talking, they start tossing out things, and I'm just like, "I mean, you lost me. You guys are talking about this way." It's almost like learning a whole new language, right? I mean, what's the first thing that I remember in high school when I was learning Spanish, for language? Like, man, I can barely speak English. You want me to, learn another language? And hey, that teacher could just start talking. She was from Argentina. Man, she just started talking. And it's just like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. You're going way too fast. Um, but yeah, they start talking about like, "Oh, my tube diameter is this and this," and it's like, "Hey, man, noob in the room, slow down. Let me catch up with you because you just spit out three numbers, and I have no idea what the numbers are, and it's tube size and the beginning and the end and all that stuff. There is so much stuff to learn, and there's so many great resources out there. Um, even just a simple Google search will get you through first focal plane and second focal plane. Every once in a while, I need to just. Sometimes I just forget. I mean, look, I'm getting older and brain just doesn't work quite as fast as it used to. Sometimes I got to Google it. There's no shame in that, but just realize that it's it's always a personal choice. And then think about what you want. Now, the other thing with scopes you have is, we talked about MOA versus MRAD and um, you know, first focal plane, second focal plane. Then someone throws in, "Hey, lighted." You know what? Lighted or not? I'm like, what do you mean lighted? And it's really cool that with a lighted reticle, especially for dusk, it's really nice to have that thing lit up. Now, like Vanessa Kitty was saying, you can't shoot what you don't see. I remember the first time out deer hunting, the sun, we were in our place, the sun was starting to come up, and man, when you start getting into that dawn and dusk, your eyes play some really weird tricks on you. Um, and of course, we're shooting with just, actually, I was shooting not that particular rifle, but I was shooting with a Model 94, and it would have been nice to have a scope because then I could have got a better view of what was there because I think there's a deer, and then it's so funny, and the sun comes up just a few minutes later, and that was a branch that I just didn't see because it was darker earlier. Um, let's see here. Vanessa Kitty was asking, what reticle do you like most? Actually, it's right here. I just run an MOA, just a standard MOA reticle. I don't like a lot of stuff on my reticle. Um, it starts to get, I don't want to say confusing. It just gets busy, right? So I like some very basic reticles because, oh, like I said before, I'm kind of I'm a simple shooter. I'm a lazy shooter and simple shooter, so I just like the less information, the better. But I still want to be able to range and understand what's going on. So no, I don't like a whole lot of craziness going on there. Um, I have on my AR, I have a Vortex Strike Eagle. Absolutely love that scope, and it's just really kind of nice. Kind of a nice scope. This Crimson Hardline is basically kind of the same type. So this one's the TR1 MOA. I like the TR1 MOA. It makes sense to me, and like I said before, it's just not busy. So Screaming Eagle on the scope that you had there. Um, what reticle do you like? Well, I mean, where do you sit with some of that stuff? And everybody else out there, we still got a few people out there haven't chimed in. Hey, chime in. Let me know what you're thinking on optics, um, scopes, no scope, red dot. Um, Vanessa Kitty wants to buy an EOTech someday. Yeah, yeah, me too. I've been drooling over EOTech for quite some time, and I don't know. It's just maybe it's just outside my price range. I would, but I would absolutely love an EOTech one day as well. Um, excuse me. Um, Sorry, I left my water over there, and it's funny. I've been going over there a couple of times, and people won't forgetting to get it. So, um, but even though we have all these optics, if I go through my safe, there are more guns that I have without optics than are with that have optics. Um, so I still like a good mix of what the of having optics versus no optics. So and that's really the title here is should we put optics on guns? I mentioned before that Smith and Wesson Model 41. It's just that gun is just it's just an irons gun. That's just the way it is. Some guns are just going to be iron guns. That Winchester is hanging up there. That's going to be an iron gun. Sure, I could put a scope on it. It's a pain, especially since it's a top eject. So the scope has to go off to the side. Just not gonna. It's just not gonna happen. My M1 Grand is just not gonna have. It's not gonna have scope on it. It's not. It's not designed for it. I mean, I know that in World War II they figured out how to put scopes on them. I'm sorry, man. I think it kind of screws up the history and the purpose of the gun. Um, so everybody, think about that out there in the chat. What are you thinking? Optics, no optics, some optics, others not optic. I have two P320s that have optics, and then I have the rest of them. I'm sad to say I have six P320s. Got a thing for P320s. Um, and then I look at all my other SIGs, my 229, my 220, they're all iron sights. I don't think I'll ever do those as red dots because I'd have to cut the slides for them. But yeah, definitely think about that out there. And Screaming Eagle, the Tremor 3 reticle on his Night Force is super busy, but it's crazy accurate. See, and that's the thing. For me, I don't like personally. I don't like busy things because then I gotta figure out what all the little things are, um, which is why I kind of like a basic thing. But I've heard people talk about the Tremor 3 reticle, and it's really all interesting. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find a picture of a Tremor 3. Tremor, Tremor 3 reticle. Um, there we go. No, I don't want to sign up for your thing. Come on. There we go. So let me bring this up. This is going to be a little busy, but yeah, the Tremor 3 is. I've heard people who love that, and it's just not. It's just not one of my favorites, just because of the all that thing. I mean, look at all that information. It's great, right? It's absolutely amazing of all the stuff that's there. And if you know how to do it, that's awesome. I'm totally jealous of people who can look at that reticle and go, "Oh yeah, this is what that is." And sorry, I'm reading the comments as I'm going along. Um, but yeah, it's let's see here. And Vanessa Key is, what about optics for Spot the robot service doggy to carry news from me? um, yeah, I can't help you with that one. I'm sorry, Vanessa. Um, and Screaming Gold says it's not too busy when you zoomed in for all. in uh, God, you can tell it's the end of the week. Sorry, guys, it's been a tough week in my day job. Not too busy for when zoomed. That and all due to being first focal point. Yeah, I would understand. Yeah, I could see that, right? Because you're not going to see all the the other stuff. You're going to kind of focus on that. But yeah, um, let's see. I haven't had to mess around with the NPH dots as I've never had to shoot fast moving targets at a distance. No, but isn't it badass that you could if you really wanted to, right? I mean, that's the cool thing with that. I love that you could do that whole estimation so that way you can get a lead. Um, and that's one thing that um, is a tough thing to start figuring out. But yeah, that is a really thing. And then Vanessa Kitty was saying Roy K has a question. But before Roy K says, I'm done. Um, so Roy, what are you done about, man? Let's see here. Oh, Roy K earlier had a question about what do you think of batteryless Ruger Ready red dot? I haven't played with one. Honestly, I haven't played with one. I'd love to know what they're doing with that. I don't know if they're using tritium on that. Um, but yeah, it was I like that idea because we're earlier I was talking about the problem with red dots. Like I was talking about on this P320 or P365 slide is I love on my red dot here that I have a rear notch. So if the battery goes down, I can still have iron sights. And I like that idea. I just don't know. I just don't know that much about that optic to to really talk about it, and I haven't played with one, but I totally want to. I totally do. I love the idea of going batteryless. I just don't know how long that would last. So I would still want to have some type of I mean, let's face it, anything can fail, right? I mean, that's just the way it is, especially when we're talking about a carry gun. These things are getting bounced around. Being on, on my right handed, being on right hip, getting in the car, I'm gonna bang. I might bang into the slide, putting my seatbelt on. Um, I know someone who banged theirs on the side of like a filing cabinet one time. We're hard on our stuff, so we need to be able to realize that something could fail. I just like things that we could that give us a backup, and that's really why I'm a kind of more of a pistol person than a rifle person. I've got an action over there that I'm going to be building a rifle up, but it kills me that the action doesn't have sights, and I'm not going to have a sights on that gun. It's going to be purely an optics gun. Um, that kind of gives me a little bit of sadness thinking about that. I'm not going to have some irons to back it up, but the purpose of that gun is going to be long distance. It's going to shoot farther than I could see with irons. So I'm kind of comfortable with that at the same time. Um, but yeah, optics have come so far. I mean, the first time I shot optics was on a pellet rifle that we had. It just had a little Tasco scope on it, and being the adventurous child that I was, I totally trashed that scope, um, and it just became an irons gun. So definitely, chime in out there. What do you guys are thinking about? Um, Screaming Eagles talking about the Trutchcon MRO is built like a tank, and I've seen several torture tests done on it, and it takes a licking, keeps on ticking, and holds zero. That it's funny that you say that because that's the type of stuff I'm looking at. I was testing a red dot one time for the channel a few years ago, and well, speed limits are faster out here, right? We have 80-mile-an-hour speed limits here in Montana, and let's face it, man, our cruise control set at 85. And what I remember, I went out to the range, shot the gun with the optics, And then what I did is, I knew everything was zeroed in. I took that rifle, tossed it into my trunk, and then I left. And there's some switchback turns on I-15 here between Boulder and Butte, and just took them at 85 miles an hour. And you hit hit one turn, you're a thunk as that thing went. I just went back and forth to these switchback turns, just kind of beat that thing up. Nowhere near the torture tests that you're talking about. But yeah, um, and I got back to the range, and I was surprised that that thing held 0. But yeah, that's one thing that I'm worried about with optics. I'm very hard on gear. Um, I don't know why. I just am. Like at my day job, at one of the places I used to work with, people used to come up to me and ask me like, what's the cover on my cell phone, or what's the cover on my iPad?" Just because I tell them what it is, and they're like, "Okay." I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "Oh, we know you're hard on your gear, so I want to know what to put on my gear for my kids." But yeah, I would love, trust me, I would love to do a torture test on some optics. But I'm hard on gear, so that's one thing that I get nervous about with prices of things. If I see something that's a little bit cheaper, I get a little nervous going, I don't know if it's gonna be Jason proof. And That's why I start choosing it. I mean, I worry about these red dots. Now, I forget the company that now sells like a red dot protector um, that I saw, and that is so that is that is like so mean. I swear they invented that because I beat the hell out of everything. Um, Screaming Eagle's got a Pelican Shield phone case. It's really solid. Yeah, I looked at the Pelican, but I've been running OtterBoxes for so long that I just kind of, I don't know. I just want to get something new. I just put an OtterBox on it. But I do like that Pelican. I'm not gonna lie. Let's see here. What else we got here? Morph, hey man, thanks for joining us today. Speaking of torture tests, what scope characteristics should I look for when choosing for a 50? Is 50 rated a myth? Um, I want to say no. Now the thing with a 50, with everything, it depends, right? Um, just realize that when you're looking at optics for a gun, especially when you start to talk about rifles and the high-end rifles like that, the rifle sometimes becomes the cheaper part of it. The optics could sometimes be twice as much. I've been out on some 50s. I've been out with some people that have 50s. I don't have one, um, but it, a 50 is actually not that hard, believe it or not. Sure, it's a big round. It's got a lot of percussion coming out of it, especially out of those breaks. But I don't think 50 rated is a myth, because you are talking about a heavy gun that is shooting a big ass bullet out there. There's a lot of shake. I have a 308 AR that's got a 16-inch barrel, and that gun, I love testing off that gun because that gun, if you have a product that has a weakness, that gun finds it. So it's not even just, is it 50 rated a myth? It's just heavy recoil. I know I'm talking a lot about Crimson Trace. Like Crimson Trace came out with the HRO. Um, it's heavy recoil optic. You do want some stuff when you start getting those bigger guns. You want some things that can take a little bit more recoil, because just because shooting a 50 once, I mean, it's not that bad. I can't imagine shooting a 50 all day long. Um, so I totally don't think 50 rated is a myth. Now, that being said, like I said, I don't have a 50. I only know I'm an OP 50, right? So I'm no other person's 50. So that is, just take it for what it's worth. Definitely talk to some people about 50. Um, and then Screaming Eagles chiming in there. If you can afford it, get a Night Force. They taking the internet. I would agree with that. Night Force, Night Force is good, and I'm glad Screaming Eagle was talking a little about the quality rings, mounts and rings. That's that's a real thing, right? Because we start talking about mounting it. We have not talked about the mounting hardware. But if you're talking about on scopes, get a good set of rings, because it's nothing like having a really nice scope and then your rings being crap and they might twist, bend. You might not have the scope mounted in. I'm looking around and I have no idea where the mount is for. Oh, there it is. Um, for that thing. It's a nice solid. I mean, look at it. Look at it. The chunk of metal this thing is. A nice solid set of mounts is awesome because they will help you maintain that zero on that optic, especially if you're talking about something that's going to take some beating. Um, I personally like the cantilever mounts. I like this because there's I really don't worry about lapping these things. But if I had two like independents, I would definitely lap those because I just don't know. I probably should worry about lapping this, but I don't. But yeah, definitely think about getting some good rings because there's nothing like having a great optic you spend a lot of money on. The whole thing about you're only good as your weakest link. Well, if your weakest link is the thing holding it to your gun, you might not actually, you might be on center and then later on find out that you're not. Um, yes, and of course, torquing to manufacturer recommendations. Definitely get a torque wrench. I've got I got everything all hidden, all worked around here. Get a torque wrench. There's nothing like torquing those things correctly. There are specifications, and then there are some guidance if you don't have specifications. That mount up there, that's a wheeler mount. That came with specifications. But yeah, get a torque wrench and know how to torque them because you're not going to just torque around. If you've ever changed a tire, you're supposed to use a star pattern when you change your tire to torque those things. You're going to do the exact same thing with your mounts. You're going to use the star pattern when you do the torquing of those screws. So that way, you're making sure that you know, you're getting everything set square. Because if I torque around, I might actually kind of bend things a little bit. So get a torque wrench and make sure that you're torquing to the recommendations. That is some great advice. Let's see here. I'm trying to think. Um, God, I know I have like it's like the one time I'm looking for a torque wrench and they're never around. Most of the time I'm like trying to put them away. I have a couple torque wrenches. I have uh, one from Real Avid, actually sitting right back there. That one's a nice one. I like it. I've had the Wheeler fat wrench. I have two fat wrenches. I have the one, the analog and the digital. The one thing as much as I like that digital, um, I like the regular analog ones where they get the click out of them because that digital one has a readout and then you can set the readout to what it is and it starts beeping when you get to the correct torque. But I like the break of a torque wrench, mostly because I'm so used to using torque wrenches for doing barrels, putting barrels on and stuff like that. Um, Ricardo talking about airsoft. Airsoft site's good. Um, they fit on the rails. Yeah. Um, so, um, maybe, they might be, it's I'm laughing because I have this thing, there's a, there's a YouTube Shorts that I did, like, years ago that people just lost their crap over, because I was shooting airsoft against one of my Caldwell steel targets, and people just, like, lost their crap, and I've been thinking about actually, like, taking the airsoft gun because I have an M17 airsoft gun that I use for training when I can't shoot outside. Um, I've been thinking about like taking like a really expensive red dot and putting on that. Just watching people just like lose their crap over putting an expensive red dot onto an airsoft. I wouldn't trust my life on it. I just put it that way. And more fan, no problem, man. It's great that you're asking these questions. I love that you have a shorter 308 because I have one. The whole build about that rifle was I call yeah, it's called it got the name Shake and Bake because like I said before, it shakes everything up, and if you have a product that has a problem, that rifle finds it. Um, but it really the idea of it was to be a sleeper gun that you really if you were looking at that AR, you just didn't know it was a 308 unless you're paying attention to the mag. Because it's got a adjustable stock and it's got free floated and stuff like that. Um, Unless you're paying attention to the mag, you won't know it's a 308 until I squeeze the trigger. And then you're gonna be like, what? You know, because I was literally at the range when I first built that rifle shooting it. My wife was the next day over and she came back. She was picking brass. She came back and she's like, "What the hell were you shooting?" I was like, "It's my 308." She goes, "Damn, that thing sounds like a 50." But yeah, no problem, man. It's great that you're here asking questions. Definitely ask questions. Um, and Screaming Eagles, aerosol softs are better than nothing, but I would save up and get some real quality. Absolutely. They're I've had so many like Amazon sellers like, "Hey, we want to send you something." And I'm like, "No." I'm just not gonna because I'm gonna put that thing on a gun and I'm gonna throw it. I'm seriously gonna throw it just to watch it break. Um, and Yeah, that's why I avoid a lot of those videos. That's why you don't see like Amazon videos, any product from Amazon, really. Those Amazon sellers. I try to keep off the channel. And Screaming Eagles talk about it. Airsoft Colt license M16A1 just to practice drill. Just because I love the retro look. Man, I'll tell you what, honestly, I like the retro look too. Don't get me wrong, I love my ARs, but there is something about the retro. My airsoft gun is like I said, is the M17 because I'm mostly a pistol shooter. Mine is actually a Sig Air. So Sig actually builds it. Well, I'm sure somebody builds it for them. I'm pretty sure they don't build their own, but it is an actual branded Sig. Since I shoot the P320, the PT20 X5 is my competition gun. They don't have an X5, but the M17 it's close enough, right? But yeah, definitely think about that with if you're looking for some training. Yeah, I have no problem with using airsoft. People give me crap about that, but um, yeah, and I really can't. I really can't fault the retro look. I like the retro look. It's funny. Speaking of ARs, I heard this week that Wyndham Weaponry is going out of business. Well, actually, they're out of business now. They're getting ready to go go to auction for all their stuff. It's sad to see that company go. When I was in FFL, I used to be a dealer for them. Um, yeah, it's some crazy times going on here, and we're down to the last couple of minutes. And man, if you have hung in this far, thank you so much for listening to me ramble for the last 60 minutes, almost 60 minutes here. It's a passionate subject, and honestly, optics are a personal choice just as much as the gun is a personal choice to you. The way you shoot it is personal as well. We didn't talk about mounting. There are different ways of mounting things. I personally mount off the reticles. I used to mount off the turrets, not mount, level off the reticles. I used to mount off the turrets. So when this thing was sitting in there, I used to put a level here. But I now level off the reticles because just because the turrets are here doesn't mean the reticles are level to it. So there are some things about scopes that you need to think about. Think about how you're going to mount it, the hardware. You see, this is why I avoided scopes for so long. There's so many things you got to do. It's not hard once you figure it out, but getting over that learning curve is definitely a serious thing. Definitely use the advice of friends and other people that have these things. And man, it's just an argument that's never going to go. Optic, should we put optics on your gun? Yeah, why not? if you like to. If the gun's designed for it, go for it. Have fun with them. It's fun with optics, man. So, anyways, with the last 15 seconds, man, I want to thank you guys again for joining in. It's been great having you here with us on this Friday, and hope you all have a really safe weekend. And we'll see what we do next week when Lupo finally decides to show up to the show. Take it easy, everyone.